Welcome to the Rough Characters Podcast. I am your host, Philip Overby.
And I'm John Palladino.
And we're back with another episode. This time we're going to be talking about writerly endeavors, specifically coming up with ideas or brainstorming, and that oh so pesky shiny new idea syndrome where you're working on something and then suddenly you get all these great new ideas. So we're going to be mostly talking about developing ideas and how to stay on track, what we've done, what we haven't done, these type of things. But first, let's talk about what's happening out there in the world, the sci-fi fantasy world. Anything particular going on, John?
Well,
boy.
There was some news a little while ago that we haven't actually talked about, and that is the announcement that Dungeons and Dragons is going to be doing a 6th edition, but it's not really a 6th edition because it's going to be compatible with 5th edition. And I was wondering what you thought about that. I think it's strange, the whole way they're doing it.
A 6th edition. So are they doing similar to what they did with 5th edition, where they're kind of asking people what they want, and then they're kind of seemed like 5th edition was almost like crowdsourced in a way, from what I gather. A lot of the rules were tested by actual fans.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know that 5th edition was so, like you said, like almost crowdsourced, just so wildly successful too, that like after 4th edition, and I actually never played 4th edition, so I can't say anything on it, but I've heard it was like abysmal. Whether or not that's true, I have no opinion on it, because I didn't play it. But I find it interesting that they're kind of keeping 5th edition in the running per se, because by keeping it compatible with the new stuff that they're creating, you're keeping all the fans of 5th edition, which was like stupendously successful. But I just find that so strange because they didn't announce like 5.5. I'm pretty sure they specifically said like 6th edition. And like typically we've seen every single new iteration be completely like separate from the last one.
Yeah.
If they want to keep it backwards compatible, it's usually like 3.5. That's when I first started playing, was 3.5. And I guess that was compatible with all the 3rd edition stuff, I think. I don't really know because I never had any of the 3rd edition stuff.
Maybe they're trying to do like PlayStation 2,
Yeah,
PlayStation 3. You can play the PlayStation 2 games on the PlayStation 3.
It almost feels like this is going to be like DLC for 5th edition.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to pay for the 5th edition DLC and get all the skins, all the new classes and skins.
I just don't understand how you can call it a new edition while also incorporating the old edition, because the fundamental changes between editions have been so like big, and now they're like actually not really, because it's all compatible. So if that's the case, and I haven't researched much into it, I don't even know if, as of recording right now, if there's information that kind of explains it more. But it's weird to me because all they have to do is change one mechanic, and all of a sudden 5th edition is, screwed. But so obviously they're not going to do that. But like, I almost feel like they're limiting themselves. And of course, with the success of 5th edition, it's no surprise that they would, I suppose, do that. But I just don't know how interested most of the player base will be. I don't
Well,
know.
I kind of, I grew up on second edition, and like it was hard for me to shift to any other new edition because it's just so drastically different. Like pretty much everything was redone. Um, but like sixth edition, uh, I would imagine they're gonna do the same thing they did with fifth edition. I would guess like get a lot of feedback from the community and like what would make sixth edition different than fifth edition, but still allow it to work together. Like the source books from sixth edition could work with fifth edition, something like that. I mean, all I can think is, I mean, realistically, it's business, a business idea, I guess. Like we'll release sixth edition and then we can get some more money,
Yeah, yeah,
which makes sense, but yeah, I don't know.
it does feel like they're like revamping fifth edition for fifth edition players, and because it's a big base, and then calling it sixth. But I just don't know that it's going to feel like sixth edition.
Yeah, I would feel like there would have to be some major, because like yeah, from second edition to third edition, like third edition to me was like I don't even know what's going on. Like I tried playing it from going from second edition to third edition, and like people are like, oh, this is this and this is it, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, I guess that works better, but I basically have to relearn the game, you know, from
So
from scratch, kind of.
you didn't play 3.5.
Well, I had when I played D&D was in junior high school, so I went from playing second edition in junior high and high school to basically not playing anything for like 10 years, 20 years.
Okay.
So
So that's actually funny that you said that, because that's exactly what happened to me. I played in high school, and you're a little bit older than me, so when I was in high school, it was like 3.5. I think it had just come out like a year or two before. I can't remember the exact release dates of these things, but that was like the newest version, and so we played that like until we graduated, and then I think I was in college. It was like right after I graduated, a year or two after that, and fourth edition came out. But by then, we weren't playing. No one was playing. I didn't play again until fifth edition came out.
yeah, and I think it's similar for me. And nowadays there's so many like new games. Like I'm not even like just a D&D player. Like back when I was playing, there was D&D, and then there was like the White Wolf games like Vampire and Werewolf, and then there was a handful like smaller games. Um, there was Warhammer and Shadowrun and a couple of other properties, but basically um, there was just D&D. But these days, I mean, there's all sorts of shit you can play. So um, I mean, it could be Wizards of the Coast uh, trying to keep the wave going on D&D since D&D is so popular now. So maybe they have something unique that's going to be in sixth edition to.
Yeah, you know that during COVID, it was like fifth edition had been dying out, because it had been out for so long.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and everything just like sprang back up. I think all digitally, of course, like Roll20 and D&D Beyond. There's another one. I can't remember the name of it. That's very popular, and now I feel like a bad person.
Something Realms. There's one called something Realms.
I don't remember, but it's another platform like Roll20
Yeah.
anyway that I'm thinking of.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's kind of like the developing news, I guess, still, even though you say it's a little bit older news. It's the first I've heard of it. I guess I'm not.
Oh, you haven't heard of that at all?
Yeah, that's the first I've heard
Oh,
anything
wow.
about
I
sixth edition.
did not expect that. Yeah, they announced that. Let's see, it is September 24th right now. I think that news has been out for a month, maybe. I can't remember exactly when I heard it, but we never talked about it, so I thought I'd get your thoughts on it here. And I'm sure that we're a while before we see anything come out for 6th edition. I mean, I think they're just, getting into it, really. I guess we'll see, but I can't say I'm super excited for it because, like you said, there's so many games now, and I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons for quite some time because, well, to be frank, I'm kind of D&D'd out. I've played it so much in my life that I think I'll always consider it my favorite tabletop role-playing game, but lately I've been much more into experimenting with other stuff. You and I just started playing the Dune game. That's been really fun.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. Like, I like D&D fine, and I think it does what it does the best. Like, what you want to do with it, it does the best the way you would play like an adventure game, I think.
Yeah.
Like a long campaign adventure game, but like I've been buying all these other publishers' books just to try like different stuff, and yeah, there's lots of cool systems to play other than that, and maybe we can get into that on another episode sometime. Like some of
I
the
think a
other,
tabletop episode would be great.
yeah, some other stuff we've played and experienced. But today, Wizards of the Coast had a shiny new idea, and maybe today we're going to talk about our shiny new ideas. And just ideas in general, how we come up with them. So we're both writers. You are a published indie writer with your first book out, The Trials of Ashmount, and there's your plug. And so you worked on this for a while, and I'm in a similar situation where I've worked on different stuff, but I tend to be more in love with the process of coming up with stuff, which I think a lot of writers suffer from. They're in love with the idea of world building and coming up with characters and all this kind of stuff, but then when it comes time to actually execute the idea and put it to paper, it doesn't come out the way that you necessarily want it to, and then editing comes into play, and everyone, almost everyone I know hates editing, so that becomes a thing. So let's just kind of maybe just talk about first like how we start with a seed of an idea, and then that becomes something bigger. So for you, like where did the Trials of Ashmount like idea come from initially?
So that's a really good question. It's also difficult to answer because the magic system in this book actually originated from when I was in high school, which was a long time ago. So I was writing, and when I was 17, 18, I just had a ton of ideas and obviously no time to write everything. And one of my ideas was a magic system that was tied to like your life. So you could spend your life to do magic, but it would age you as you used it. And I kind of filed that away in my head and never used it. And then when I wrote this book, I was like, I'm going to finally use this magic system and see what happens. So I quit my job when COVID happened because of them trying to screw me over, basically, and really focused on writing and trying to do that. And so I took this magic system and I just kind of sat down, thought about what I wanted to do, and very quickly I came up with 3 of the points of views out of the 5 and just started writing, and then it kind of developed from there. So I'm not sure that the Trials of Ashmount is necessarily the best example of like coming up with an idea that I've had, because it kind of like was from a very old idea that then I kind of just started writing with, and it kind of blossomed into what it is now.
Well, that's interesting because I actually do something a lot. I'm sure it has a name, but I basically call it cannibalizing ideas, where I'll take an idea from like an RPG that I did, a tabletop RPG, or I'll take an idea that I came up with years ago, or I take all these ideas and I kind of do the same thing. I kind of file them away, and then I try like thinking like, okay, how can I execute this idea? And then I may try it in a story, and then like, okay, it didn't work in that story, but I still like the idea, so I want to see if I can execute it a different way. So I'll often kind of do that. I'll come up with ideas that I use, and then I'll cannibalize myself essentially, and use a lot of the old ideas from other stories that were never published or were never executed the way I wanted to, and I'll redo them basically in a different story. And I found some success with that, producing like stories that I liked, because there were already ideas that I wanted to see brought to fruition. It was just I wasn't ready to do it, or I just couldn't execute it the way I wanted to.
So, uh, have you actually? This is not meant to be insulting, Phil, but have you ever actually cannibalized successfully? And what I mean by that is taken your ideas from things and then actually finished something. I know, not necessarily a book, but something from those ideas. Because we've talked about this off the podcast, where finishing things is not your strong suit.
Well, it's just it's finishing things is like kind of depends on what it is. Like if it, I think we've kind of talked about how like if it's stories or whatever, I don't tend to finish those things because I feel like there's unlimited amount of time to do it. And that's kind of my downfall with like executing ideas, is that I think, well, I can do this whenever I want. Whereas other ideas like for work or for, that are more time pressured, I tend to, finish all that stuff. So it's more of like I don't give myself deadlines like I should. So that kind of puts me in a bad position where I can't necessarily finish stuff, specific projects. But the Splatter Elf idea that I came up with, which was basically came from the idea of a world where it was just like so ridiculously dark and so ridiculously goofy, which kind of came from game ideas I had in the past. So I would say the Splatter Elf idea was kind of cannibalized from different like kind of goofy stories I had done over the years, and I decided just to make it its own world. So that was an example of like cannibalizing myself, where I actually published the stories and stuff like that. So, and then like RPG stuff, I've done that a lot too. Like I had all these different campaigns that I did, and then eventually I did one like master campaign, which was like my big campaign that went several years, and a lot of the ideas I took from old campaigns and put them into the new campaign. So it has worked, to varying success. But it's one of those things that uh, can screw me up sometimes because I'm always like trying to execute an idea that maybe I just can't do. So that's kind of the issue, I think. Whereas like I get really ambitious, and I think that's a big pitfall for newer writers or like more amateur writers, is coming up with something really, really ambitious that you're just not ready to tackle yet. And I think that's kind of been my issue over the years, is always thinking too big and then not being ready, time wise, to dedicate the time to, actually executing it.
Yeah, and to go to your point about amateur slash like newer writers, you and I both admin Facebook groups that have writers, and we see often in these groups when people post, man, so many people get so stuck in world building. I've just wrote 30 pages of world building. How am I supposed to start the story if I still don't have everything world built? Well, I think the answer to that is stop world building, because there's no point in it. I mean, some people like to make all these like all this back information and stuff before they start writing, but then you're just losing yourself, I think, right? You're spending all your time, and by the time you figure everything out, I mean, you've spent so long working on working out how it works. So if you actually come up with like a basic idea, and maybe you do some world building, I'm not saying don't, but if you just, and I'm talking from the point of view of a discovery writer, I don't plot, so it could be different. I'm sure that a lot of the world builders are also heavy plotters, but I think if you're trying to plot a whole story and then world build a whole story before you start writing, there are serious problems there, because A, who knows how it's going to actually unfold as you write, and B, you don't know how much of that information you're going to actually need to use. And if you create all this extra information, I get it, Tolkien did it, but not everybody is him, and not everyone needs that much information. And I think that's a huge trap when you come up with a new idea and you're like, oh man, this is such a cool thing, and then you spend all your time focusing on expanding that without actually writing any of the story, and you don't actually know what you're going to use.
Well, I think that's where the shiny new idea syndrome comes from. Is a lot of people that are into fantasy and sci-fi love world building, and they love that aspect of of creating new worlds and stuff like that. So what they do, and I've been guilty of this as well, is where you come up with something that you think sounds really cool, and you come up with all these little details, all the countries and everything. But then you're like, oh, I just suddenly got this new idea that's like so much better than that one. But it's like, really, I mean, people have kind of talked about this before, but like ideas are, an idea might as well be like a piece of shit on your shoe. Like it doesn't matter, like an idea. And people get really attached to like ideas. Like I gotta have my ideas and da 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 da. But it's like, uh, you could have 500 different ideas, and someone could take those same 500 ideas and come up with a completely different story based upon whatever that idea is. So the problem with coming up with new ideas all the time is that nothing is getting executed, and that's kind of where I've gone in a circle for years and years, just coming up with like story ideas and then never getting around to writing them, just because of time and lack of focus on a specific project. So I know that can
So
be a big problem for writers where they just have too many ideas and they can't stick to one, and that kind of puts you on the wrong path sometimes.
yeah, I currently have the series I'm working on, the sequel series, and then I have a whole bunch of other shit planned. Um,
And
and a lot
you're
of
struggling, right, to not.
that's I wouldn't say I'm struggling. So this is how I do it because I get what you're saying and I understand why some people do struggle, but uh, I think that I published the book, so like it's out there. It's the first in a series. Now I have that pressure that like people are waiting and expecting the next book. So I think that weight sort of like helps keep my focus.
Yeah.
But I also, before I even published, decided I'm going to just focus on this because I have to. If I don't, I'll be in serious trouble because I know what'll happen if I start working on something else. I'll get bored of what I'm working on now and I'll never finish it because that's how it always goes for me. So what I do is while I've been writing my first series, I've come up with many new ideas of things that I am super excited to write. So uh, I have an app on my phone um, okay, so there's two reasons why I have this app on my phone. It's just a regular note app, and the first is relevant here, which is it's it's an app that syncs with my account. So if I get a new phone, all my information will just automatically download to the next phone. So if my phone breaks or dies, I don't have to worry about it. Why not the computer, you ask? Well, um,
I didn't ask.
I know, but I know some people are probably thinking that. And it's because when I go to sleep, I'm usually awake for a long time. And that's an oxymoron. When I'm trying to go to sleep, I'm awake for a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, and I always think of like the most genius ideas right before I fall asleep. So I don't want to lose them. So I just like roll over real quick. I grab my phone. I type it out on this app. But when I get a new idea, I open a new page in the app, I guess, a new note, whatever you want to call it. And I usually have a title in mind for it. So I'll put the title, I'll put a basic overview of like what the idea is. And usually when I come up with a new idea, I immediately come up with like a title for the story and a character's name or two, and maybe a new magic system, let's say. Um, so I'll just kind of jot down my notes about that, and then I try and forget about it. And sometimes I'm successful, and sometimes I'm not. And when I'm not, that usually means I really want to start working on it. And so sometimes I'll add to that document. And something else I noticed that I have tried is I'll like start writing the very beginning of this project I'm super excited for, which is probably the worst advice that I could give to someone else because I know that other people don't have the same like self-control where like if they start writing it, they'll probably want to keep writing it. But hear me out for a second. So I take maybe 1 or 2 days and I just kind of casually write. And I never do this instead of writing what I'm supposed to be writing. I do it in addition to it. It was kind of like a reward, I guess. You know, I finished what I wanted to do on the thing I'm supposed to be working on. Then afterwards, you know, maybe I take a break and then I'm like, okay, I really want to kind of try this new project. So I'll write a day or two in a row and I'll just kind of put out the beginning and I'll see if I like the vibe. And if I do, I'll save it and I have it saved and I won't look at it again. I've kind of gotten it out of my system a little bit. And so that when I eventually want to return to it, I kind of have a vibe of the world and maybe the type of story I was going for because I have, you know, a page or two written out. I don't spend a ton of time writing this because I'm not trying to like completely get invested. But I kind of feel like I get the, oh my God, I really want to write this new idea like out of my system, and then I go back to like what I'm supposed to be working on.
Yeah, I kind of do a similar thing. I have an app on my phone where I write down brainstorming ideas for different stuff, and usually these days I use Google Scholar, or not Google Scholar. I've been teaching too much recently. Google Doc, Google Docs I use to keep up with stuff, kind of, and I've been having some pretty good success with that because I can actually write stuff anywhere using the Google Docs. So right now I'm trying to finish up this short story collection that I've been working on for years and years, and I've just kind of been delaying putting it out because I'll get a new story idea I want to add to it. So it's kind of been this open-ended project, which is not the best idea, I think, because if you're open-ended about something, then it's not going to get finished. So I'm trying to do more of a deadline-based writing, whereas I think I made a bet with you, like I'll give you $100 if I don't finish the short story collection by the end of the year, and
That's right.
that's incentivized me to like finish it. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want to give you $100. So I mean, it's a small thing, but it's also like it gives me that deadline that okay, it has to be finished by the end of the year, or I have to lose
Right.
money.
I my writing process is like strange. I wouldn't really recommend people follow my advice, but what I usually do is I'll write like in blocks, like month blocks. So I'll have like 2 or 3 months where I'm writing almost every day. I'm just cranking out words, 80, 90,000 words in those months or whatever. So I'm not like a crazy writer, but fast enough. And so I'll get 100,000 words in 3 months or something. And then all of a sudden I'll just crash. I'll just be like, oh, I don't feel like writing, and I'll go 2 or 3 months without writing, and then I'll go right back into it and plunge through it and usually finish it, and then take some time off and go back. But when I'm in those blocks of like heavily writing, I kind of set myself goals. I never cared too much about like a daily goal, but if it's like Wednesday and I'm at like, maybe my document says I have 74,000 words, then I'll be like, oh, that'd be really cool to get to 80,000 words by the end of the week. So then that'll kind of be like an unsaid goal, but it'll be like in my head, I'll be like, I really want to hit that. And then I try and make it happen. And if I make it happen, I feel really good because I just, made progress and met my unsaid goal. But also, B, anytime I hit another huge milestone, and for me, my milestones are any like 10,000 word mark, or
Yeah.
any 50 page increment. So every 50 pages, I feel pretty happy. Or 25 pages, really, I get pretty happy for too. So if I'm at page 201, then I want to get to page 225. Then by the time I get to page 225, usually you're kind of close to like the 10K mark, and then you hit that mark, and then you're close to like another 25, and so it just kind of like keeps going. And if you have those type of goals, I think maybe if you were doing something similar, you could finish your ideas faster, because you said you've been working on a short story collection for years, and that to me is like wild.
Well, it's not working on it really.
Oh, I
It's like
know.
that's the issue. I'm not working on it. If I'd
Right.
been working on it, then it'd be finished.
Right.
So
Thinking about it is what I should have said.
uh, that's the issue with having open-ended kind of idea. So I think when coming up with ideas and deciding what you're going to write, I personally think, this is just me, but this is something that I talked to you about, like coming up with like, 5, 10 ideas whenever you start a project. And then, you know, my idea was to write like 10,000 words on each idea, which, is not necessarily a realistic goal, um, but to actually decide strongly which of those 10 ideas you cannot forget about. So, like, whatever the idea that you commit to, that's the one you got to commit to for the next several months or however long it's going to take you to write it. And then all those other ideas will just have to be there waiting for you, because that's kind of the issue that I've noticed. People who are similar to me that can't finish stuff a lot is that they'll write. I mean, some people can do this, but they'll write 2, 3, 4 things at one time, and it just makes it really hard to commit to the one idea and finish it. And I think a lot of people that are successful at writing, they do commit to the one idea, and then they follow it to execution, and then they edit it, and then once they send it off to an editor, they start writing the next thing, and they keep going. It's kind of a ongoing thing. And I don't think I've ever taken being a writer seriously up until a couple of years ago, where I've been thinking about it more. So it's always just kind of been a hobby. But to go from a hobbyist to like an actual, like, legitimate published writer is a huge step. So you have to kind of treat it like a job almost. Even if you're like an indie person, you have to treat it like a job.
Yeah, I think it's all mindset, really, because I just decided one day, like, I'm going to now publish a book, and so then I kept that mindset and I did it. But I want to sort of talk about what you were saying when it came to, man, what were you just saying? It just went out of my head. It was about how people. I'll come back to it. I can't remember, Phil. I thought I started talking about something and it went out of my head. I apologize.
So, about like coming up with several ideas and committing to one?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So you said that. Sorry, I don't know what happened, but you said that there are writers out there who are able to write multiple things all at once.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, holy crap, can you imagine coming up with a new idea and then being like, I'm going to work on that, and then also maintaining your work on other stuff? That would be so cool. I would love to be able to do that. I just don't have the capacity. I don't know if it's because I write complicated, like, I have 5 POVs in my series, which is complicated because it's like 5 different stories, right? And that's really difficult to manage by itself. I can't imagine trying to come up with a whole different world, a whole different story, and then trying to remember. I have a hard enough time remembering what I wrote like 2 days ago. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to like keep multiple projects. Have you ever tried to do that yourself? Like, do like multiple books, or work on, like, you make games sometimes too, tabletop games. Work on a tabletop game and also write, and then you also are a teacher, so you're doing stuff for that. Like, my brain would explode.
Well, I'm sure my brain's exploded a few times, but Yeah, I've tried that. I've tried working on like a novel idea and then writing short stories and then, doing my job and being a husband and blah, 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 everything all at the same time. And you really have, like, for me, I really think I just have to segment my time better. So I need to have it, if you're the type of person that's just like me, that's just all over the place, you have to segment that time, you know, during the day where like, okay, this is my writing time of the day, or this is my, you know, dedicated to gaming or whatever. And I found that like, organizing my life a little better in that way has helped. Because I'm not the type of person that stays on task unless I'm, you know, time pressured. I was the student that if I had a essay due, I would wait the day before and I'd write
Oh
it,
my god, me too.
and it would be the best thing I've ever written, I would think, and then well, I got a B on that. Wow, I must be pretty good at the time pressure thing. I mean, imagine I would have got an A if I'd actually wrote it a couple of days before.
Yeah,
And that's something I actually like rail against my students about doing, because I knew that I could do it because I was skilled at doing it, and most students are not skilled at doing that. You can tell.
right. Yes.
So uh, time pressure and deadlines uh, might be the thing that fixes the new idea syndrome for people that struggle with it like I have. Um, just putting compartmentalizing things a little bit more, like, okay, this idea, uh, I'm going to commit to the next 6 months to writing it, or whatever, or however long it takes you to write something. Um, so that's something I'm gearing up for. Like, once I finish my short story collection, then I don't pay you $100. I'm gonna commit to one novel idea, and I'm gonna see it to the end, no matter it's shit or not.
There you
I
go.
might I
That's
might just
the
I might just have a shitty first novel and publish it. I don't know.
Hey, that mental decision to finish is like the first step. Uh, but I feel like we've gotten more onto writing processes than brainstorming and ideas. So I wanted to kind of ask you a question about brainstorming.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier a little bit, like kind of how you came up with the Splatter Elf ideas through like your campaigns from tabletop gaming. Do you find that your ideas come from other forms of entertainment, more like playing games or things like uh, tabletop role playing? That those are what gave you your ideas, and that's how you kind of like have all these ideas, or do they just kind of like randomly come to you as well? I guess.
I think typically they come from like experiences I have. So like, for example, the novel idea I'm thinking of right now uh, involves a church, and the church has an order of priests connected to every organ in the body. So you have the heart, lungs, pancreas, gallbladder, all these things. It's related because I've had so many health problems over the years, and I've spent so many times in hospitals, and I know what causes what ailments. So like,
Oh.
uh, I think I get fascinated by the idea of real world situations put into a fantasy setting, and Splatter Elf uh, came from the idea of um, taking some of the things that we have in our real life. So, for example, there's a character that has kidney problems in one of my stories, and instead of it being kidney stones, it's actually a demon that lives in his kidney and is scratching around in his kidney. So I like the idea of taking physical ailments or physical medical problems or whatever and making it into a fantastical thing. And so I've always been interested in like kind of like pseudoscience, like alchemy or you know, witches I've been interested in for a long time. I went to Salem and went to the Salem Witch Museum, and I'm really interested in like old treatments for things like, oh, drink this potion and your
things
heart.
that don't work.
Yeah, like I'm really interested in that kind of thing, and so a lot of my ideas actually come from reality. They don't really come from fantasy stories or anything. So I spent so much time in hospitals and learning like, oh, if you do this, that's going to affect your liver. And then I thought, oh, that'd be interesting to put that in a fantasy story. Like, there's an order of the liver that their whole purpose is to keep people with good liver function. That's their only purpose in life, basically. So I like absolutism and like, because absolutism and extremism and these kind of things are like scary in real life, and I like to put those elements into stories. So the idea of Splatter Elf kind of came from a world that was so extreme, extremely grotesque, extremely violent, extremely disgusting, that it's comical. So that's kind of the idea I came with. You would have like a campaign where like one guy would fight 100 goblins and kill all of them. And I thought, well, let's put that in a story. So that's what I've done. So I have like one character just murdering hundreds of goblins. So yeah, a lot of my ideas come from just real world, real life experiences, the news even, these kind of things.
Right.
So, I don't watch a movie or read a book and think, oh, that's a cool idea, I'm going to write that. It's usually real world stuff that happens, I guess.
Right.
So, speaking of the real world, this isn't a good transition, but that's a terrible transition, actually.
It's an awful. I thought you were going. I figured out where you're going, but at first I thought you had something like else to say. I guess. But.
Well,
yes,
speaking of the real world sucks, but Dungeons and Dragons doesn't.
I think your character would say elsewise. Whatever. I'm so thrown off by that transition.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't care. I just think it was funny.
I need to work on my transitions.
That could be a podcast.
Transitions, episode 7. Transitions. How to transition a podcast topic.
Right.
Well, sometimes a shitty transition is the transition.
That's fair. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to say we're moving on to the next topic, and it doesn't have to be a glorious transition.
Well, the fact that we've talked about this for so long has made it
a glorious transition.
The best transition. Yeah.
It's too true.
So, what am I doing today? What is BB over, the frail wizard, gonna get killed by today?
Yes, so today we have a challenge rating 4 monster. You're going to be fighting in honor of all the shifter books I've seen posted online lately. You're going to be fighting a wereboar.
So is this someone that transforms whenever something boring happens, or they're boring?
That was an Wow, now that could be a transition. Yes, good one. All right, so in this scenario, the werebore is already changed into his boar form, and what do you think? Do you think you have more than one round in you?
Possibly.
I think it's possible.
It really depends on his role.
That's true. Yeah. All right, so let's get our initiative scores rolled up.
All right.
Well, you're going first. He rolled a natural 1.
Yay! Well, that sucks though, because now you've dumped your one.
I've dumped my bad roll. Well, never underestimate the failed rolling I have on roll 20. We'll see what happens. I often roll terribly, like 3 or 4 times in a row.
All right. Here's my wizard. Let's cast something. Let's cast something fun.
All right.
I guess. I don't know. Hideous laughter.
Yes, you're still a level 1 wizard, aren't you?
Hideous laughter. Anything that fails a wisdom saving throw, you fall prone, becoming incapacitated, unable to stand up.
Oh my god. Would you believe it, Phil? He actually failed his wisdom saving throw.
Yay! So now you fall over then, right?
So he falls over prone and is incapacitated and unable to stand up for the duration of 1 minute up to your... Okay, so that's the end of your turn. So then his turn is a whiff, but at the end of his turn, he can take another wisdom saving throw. He has not been damaged, so he doesn't get it. Alright, so he passed. So hideous laughter fades away, but you just escaped round 1. You just survived a round.
That's all I wanted to do. Just delay the inevitable.
So you've guaranteed at least a level up. Alright. So that's back to your turn now, because his turn was essentially skipped.
That was my ploy.
Well, it worked. I can't believe it worked, but it worked. Your spell save DC is 13, and he failed.
Fuck it. Let's do it again.
Might as well.
Laugh again, you bitch.
Alright, let's see. Okay, he's good. That's just funny.
Suck it. Suck it.
But you did take that away from his attack. Now he's going to try and gore you with his tusks. And, yeah. Let's see what happens here. What is your armor, by the way? I don't recall. It doesn't matter. You got a 21.
Ouch.
You only took 6 damage.
Really? Wow.
Yes. He rolled so badly.
I think I'm still alive.
Probably. So Phil, this is a question that we haven't actually addressed on the podcast or off of the podcast. And that's permanent effects. Because when you get hit by the tusks here, if the target is a humanoid, it has to succeed on a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, or you're cursed to the werebore lycanthropy. So I'm not sure I'm guessing the verdict is we're just going to ignore that and reset after every round. Okay, that's what I thought.
I don't want to be a werebore. I'll just take the damage.
Right.
But I'm still alive. I got 2 hit points left.
You are still alive, so it is your turn. Now, normally he would have 2 attacks, but I specifically said he's in boar form, and in boar form, he can only do the tusks. So there you go.
Well, all right then. So what else can I do that's gonna slow him down? All right, let's try this. Color spray. Yeah.
All right, so you have to roll.
Taste the rainbow.
60-10. And if you don't roll high enough, it might not even affect this guy.
60-10.
Yeah, the total is how many hit points of creatures the spell can affect. You know what?
30.
Now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't matter. You could have rolled 10s across the board, and he's too powerful.
Shit.
Yeah. So
Well, he got a face full of color anyway.
what's your AC?
Spray.
Because I'm sure he just missed. He got a 10. You know what that means, Phil?
Did I survive another round?
You have progressed into round 4.
Wow.
Which means that you get all the rewards.
My AC's 12.
All right, so he missed again.
Nice. Well, let's see if I can keep going.
Might as well. This is an impressive display from a wizard with no armor.
And I have no more spells left, so only cantrips. Dancing lights. I don't even know what that does.
I think it doesn't actually do anything. I think it just gives you light. Yeah.
Well,
you can see now, but you could see before.
Cool.
I think you're about to get gored here.
Oh well. Yeah.
Natural 20.
Yeah.
Yep, so double damage, which is 4d6 plus 6, so 14 damage.
Alright.
Alright, so good news is that you lasted a really unexpectedly long amount of time. So good job there. You lasted actually I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 rounds, but 4 different rounds there. Alright, so you get 3 things. You level up.
Right.
You get a roll on the mundane loot chart. And you get a roll on our magic item chart.
This is
our
the
first magic item roll, yeah.
Nice.
Let's see what you get on the mundane item first, though.
That was a challenge rating 4.
Yes.
I got a flask of water. That's good, because I was pretty thirsty after that.
You're pretty thirsty. All right. I need you to roll 1d100. We'll see what magic table we're going to be rolling on here. $46, is that?
Yeah, 46.
So we're going to be rolling on magic table A. So roll another D100.
My favorite magic table.
Really? It's my least favorite.
I'm just kidding. I don't even know what that means. 94.
94? Holy crap. You got a 2nd level spell scroll. And I'm just going to go to my handy dandy spell scroll generator. Because it's easier. And we'll see what kind of scroll you get. It is a level 2. And generate. Alright, you got a scroll of... This is not going to be helpful in the least. A scroll of arcane lock. Open doors and chests and windows and all sorts of good stuff.
I like it.
You know, it'd be interesting one day to roleplay an actual campaign with these characters.
Yeah. They wouldn't make it very long, I don't think.
That would be the fun part.
All right, well, that ends our episode for today. And I want to thank everyone for listening. And, of course, continue to follow what we're doing online. You can go to Grimdark Fiction Readers and Writers Group to check out the Facebook group that I'm at, and negative-hp.com, and you can find the podcast on several different platforms. And then, John, anything you want to share?
I don't think so. I'm also in the Grimdark group, and I'm around on Twitter at a grim bastard.
Nice. Nice plug. All right, until next time, see you guys later.